I got involved in that through Steven. It was his idea of this kid doctor, and he came to me and said, "You want to help me craft that?" So I did, and that was fun too. But that was really Steven's baby. I I, I, I will accept the co-created credit, but I was probably more a writer for hire, hitting targets that were articulated by Stephen. I think the character of Doogie and his, a lot of his mannerisms, I certainly brought something to that. We broke it in two. I wrote the first act, and Stephen wrote the second act. So I think that just in terms of finding the voice of the characters, I contributed there. But again, I was really following pretty specific direction from Stephen. He had a real vision of what he thought that show should be, who he thought that character should be, and I did my best to accomplish it. But that was a fun experience because that was the first time I was part of a pilot process where you saw actually, okay, how does a show get from the blank page to the screen? And again, just as a teaching tool, that was a great one because that was a bumpy ride, Doogie Howser. It was not, ABC did not throw a parade and say, here, put this on. In fact, they didn't want it at first. They did not respond to the script. But again, the courage of Stephen's convictions, he believed in it. ABC had just made a huge overall deal with him. I think they correctly deduced that if they were to pass on that project and it turned out to be a hit on NBC or CBS, that people would be called to account for that. So I think there was some hedging over there that almost we would rather make this show and fail with it than run the risk of letting Stephen take it to another network and succeed with it. So we finally got the less than ringing endorsement from ABC. Okay, go make it, and we did, and we liked it, the pilot, a lot, and we said, "See, there, we did it." And now ABC, once we show it to them, they'll come around, and we showed it to them, and I don't think they liked it, what they saw on the screen, a whole lot either, but it tested really big with them. In fact, it might have been their best testing pilot that year. So they put it on, and then it became a hit. And Neil Patrick Harris is still changing the landscape of television today. So, but what it taught me again as a young writer, and it's something I'd read very few books about this industry, had very little education coming into the industry, but I did read Adventures of the Screen Trade, Adventures of the Screen Trade, just so if someone asked me if I ever read anything, I'd be able to name a book. And I remember the tenet of that book was nobody knows anything, really. And I remember in making the pilot of Doogie Howser and seeing how its success came to fruition, that tenet really was true. It's not something we put on a page and everybody said, "Aha, brilliance! This is going to work." The process was very inexact, fraught with a bunch of potholes, but you navigate, and if on the better days you navigate successfully, and we got to the finish line with that one. One of the intangibles was Neil. People responded to Neil right away, and suddenly it was a series. We thought he was fantastic. We thought he was Doogie. I believe at the network, the response was, we totally believe him as a doctor, because Neil was he was very smart. He was a 15 or 16-year-old, and he could speak doctorese. I mean, you just He'd throw out those medical terms, and you would accept them. I think ABC's response is, we believe him as a doctor, but we're not really sure about him as just a teenage kid. But that was a hesitancy. They all liked him. I think everyone was a fan of Neil, but there was a hesitancy about that second component. That went away pretty quickly once we started shooting and airing.